Chapter 12. Stage versus reality. If there existed a scientific measurement for backstage anxiety, C7's waiting area would have registered somewhere between nuclear meltdown imminent and cosmic singularity collapse. 7 young men in various states of stylized panic, paced, stretched, and engaged in their pre-performance rituals while coordinated chaos swirled around them. Stylists adjusting final details, sound engineers checking in-ear monitors, and manager Kando looking like someone contemplating a rapid career change to less stressful, like bomb disposal or tightrope walking over active volcanoes. 3 minutes to stage, a production assistant called, triggering a flurry of last-minute adjustments. "How's everyone feeling?" John asked, performing his duty as the eldest member to check the group's mental state, despite his visible nervousness. 6 variations of unconvincing "fine" echoed back at him. The truth was much more complicated. After 3 weeks of intense comeback training, 16-hour practice days, vocal coaching until their throats burned, and choreography repeated until muscles screamed, C7 was in principle prepared for this special fan showcase event. They knew the moves, the melodies, and their stage smiles were tuned. But their minds were elsewhere. Jake kept glancing at his phone, checking for messages that could not arrive in the signal-blocked backstage area. James repeatedly confirmed details of the after-party arrangements with increasingly frazzled staff members. Vic stood perfectly still in a corner, lips moving slightly as he practiced what appeared to be specially prepared remarks rather than lyrics. Silas alternated between adjusting his in-ear monitor and scowling at a composition notebook he could not seem to put away. Roman reviewed the event schedule for the 14th time, making annotations in margins already crowded with tiny handwriting. Even Julian's boundless energy seemed misdirected. His pre-show bouncing had a distracted quality. Only the film cameras moved confidently, circling the members like well-dressed scavengers, capturing their pre-performance anxiety with cinematic angles. "Remember, this showcase is being live-streamed to Legion worldwide," manager Kando reminded them unnecessarily, checking his tablet with the frantic energy, expecting disaster notifications at any moment. "This is the first public performance after your break. All eyes will be watching for any changes." The unspoken implication weighed heavily in the air. After 3 months of personal development, culminating in various media leaks that sparked unprecedented public interest, this performance would be examined for excellence and for any signs of how their personal lives influenced their flawless stage artistry. "We've got this," John assured everyone, though his voice carried less conviction than his words. "Just like practice." Except with 1,000 live audience, millions of online viewers, and cameras capturing every small dot, Roman noted helpfully. "And our girls potentially watching," James added, the euphemism for their respective relationship interests still feeling awkward even after weeks of usage. "Are they at the concert?" John asked, glancing around at his bandmates. The responses came in rapid succession. "Saul has press credentials through her culinary platform," John confirmed, straightening his already perfect collar. "Second row, center left section." Meyer refused official attendance, but accepted the backstage pass I left at will call, Silas reported with casualness that fooled no one. "Whether she uses it remains uncertain. Ellie is attending through the university's cultural initiative," Roman explained. "Observational perspective, upper mezzanine." Hope volunteered as dance captain for the pre-show entertainment, Julian bounced excitedly. "She's probably teaching the fan coordinators steps as we speak." "Sera received the VIP access I arranged," Vic stated quietly. "Confirmed arrival 12 minutes ago. Muse is bringing her entire kindergarten class through the educational outreach program," James reported with pride and terror. 25 5-year-olds wearing C7 headbands in the family section. The members turned expectantly to Jake, who had been quiet in line with his reserved standards. "Tina," John prompted gently. Jake's expression flickered for a moment. Uncertain. She mentioned potential attendance, but didn't confirm. Before anyone could respond to this concerning update, the stage manager suddenly appeared. 30 seconds to places. Final checks now. As the members formed their pre-show circle, a tradition they've kept since debut, John looked around at his bandmates seriously. "Whatever happens out there," he said quietly, "remember who we are beyond the stage. What we've discovered during our break doesn't disappear when the spotlight hits." Though proper compartmentalization of personal life remains essential for an amazing concert, Roman added automatically. "Maybe," John acknowledged with a tiny smile, "but we've learned there's strength in expressing attraction too. Whatever balance we find tonight, we find together." "As we always have," Silas nodded. "C7 on 3, James suggested, placing his hand in the center of their circle. 6 hands joined his, the familiar connection momentarily centering their scattered focus. 1 2 3 C7. As they broke their huddle and moved to their designated stage spots, the confidence from countless performances immediately took over, overriding any personal nerves. No matter their personal concerns, 7 bandmates still had a job to do. In the first half of the concert, C7 performed their signature hits with flawless choreography and perfect vocal harmony, until Jake saw her. It happened during the bridge of their third song, a mid-tempo track with a dance break that positioned Jake center stage for a solo sequence. As he completed a challenging turn combination, his gaze swept across the audience, creating the illusion of connection without focusing on any one face. Except this time, his eyes fixed on a face 3 rows back. Tina sat perfectly still amid the waving, cheering crowd, her calm presence creating a sense of stillness in the chaotic energy around her, just like she had that night at Madison Square Garden. For a microsecond that felt like eternity, Jake froze. It wasn't a major performance failure, just a brief hesitation, a fraction of a second where his body lost its choreographed rhythm. To others, it might have seemed like an intentional pause for dramatic effect. But the momentary lapse was painfully obvious to his bandmates, who had performed these sequences countless times. Roman, positioned closest to Jake, subtly adjusted his movements to mask the hesitation, creating a visual flow that hid the brief disruption. Jake recovered quickly, prioritizing his training over his emotional response. As he moved through the choreography, his movements now reflected a dual awareness, the performance sequence and the fact that Tina was watching. Instead of disrupting his performance, this awareness seemed to add an emotional layer to his dancing. The technique was still there, but it was now enhanced with expressive joy. Tina immediately sensed the mood from her seat in the audience. She stayed calm, but her focused gaze never left Jake's performance as she witnessed a fellow dancer's breakout moment. As the song concluded and the members transitioned to their next performance, Roman glanced at Jake with a questioning glance. Jake gave an almost imperceptible nod. "I am okay," he said before resuming his focus. They were not the only ones who noticed. The film director stood in the production booth, watching multiple camera feeds with narrow eyes and growing interest. Following the momentary hesitation, his gaze returned to the close-up of Jake's face, noticing subtle changes in the youngest member's performance. "Stay on, Jake," he instructed his camera operators through their headsets. "Something's happening with his performance energy. Different from rehearsals." As the showcase continued, the director noticed similar subtle changes in other members. John's fan interactions became even more charming as he moved toward the section where Saul sat, holding her press credentials. James's expressions grew more animated when performing for the family section of 25 eager kindergartners and their teacher. Silas's normally mechanical movements took on an elegant touch, on their more introspective tracks. "This is it," the director murmured to his assistant. "The intersection we've been looking for. Stage persona meets reality. Keep the cameras on their faces during transitions and fan interactions." The assistant nodded, relaying modified shooting instructions to the camera team as the director watched with fascination. It wasn't the technical perfection of their performance that interested him, but the genuine humanity that occasionally shone through it. Vic had always maintained the most controlled stage presence among C7's members. While others used lively expressions or spontaneous interactions, Vic's performance stayed gracefully steady, beautiful yet carefully adjusted, never revealing more than the exact emotional notes needed for each song. Which made what happened during their ballad showcase even more surprising. The stage darkened to a single spotlight as the members took their seats for an acoustic arrangement of their most emotional track. As planned, each member would deliver a verse before joining in harmony for the chorus. Vic's section came third, following James and Jake. What was not planned was what Vic said before beginning his verse. This interpretation contains personal meaning. He spoke softly into his microphone, his gaze directed toward the VIP section where Sera sat. For someone who translates between words of expression, who understands both the spoken and unspoken, the flower that blooms in dual gardens. The poetic introduction was not part of their rehearsed performance. Vic had never added spontaneous remarks during any performance in C7's entire career. His bandmates exchanged surprised glances, keeping their reactions minimally visible to the audience. When Vic started singing, his soulful baritone filled every heart in the audience, captivating them. The transcendent crowd sank into bliss for 3 minutes, enveloped in love and harmony. Sera understood that Vic communicated through music, just as he expressed himself with flower arrangements and metaphorical speech, creating layers of meaning that made sense to those who knew his unique language. The other members, recovering from their initial surprise, adapted their parts to complement Vic's unexpected emotional delivery. When they united for the chorus, their harmony produced a unique resonance, 7 distinct voices blending while keeping their individual expressive qualities, rather than the more balanced yet somewhat uniform sound of their previous performances. Silas caught Vic's eye with what might have been the shadow of an approving smile, as the song concluded to thunderous applause. By the showcase finale, the venue's energy had reached unprecedented levels. The connection between C7 and their audience had deepened throughout the performance. As they delivered their final song, an upbeat track designed to energize the audience, all 7 members were having a ball on the stage to the audience's deafening reaction. As they exited the stage, breathing hard and glowing with adrenaline, the members exchanged glances. "That was," John began, once they reached the safety of the backstage area. "Different," Roman supplied. "Good different?" James asked, uncertainty in his voice. "Remarkably different," Jake offered quietly, his typically reserved expression unusually open. "Less separation between performance and reality." The audience responded with unprecedented enthusiasm, Roman observed analytically. Particularly during moments of spontaneity and emotional transparency. Vic's poetic dedication nearly gave manager Kando a coronary, Silas noted with dry amusement, gesturing toward their manager, looking slightly unwell while conferring urgently with public relations staff nearby. Vic shrugged, unapologetic. Some messages require direct expression, despite stage parameters. "I felt it too," Julian bounced excitedly, his post-performance energy even more exuberant than usual. "Like we were present while performing, instead of just executing. Like being ourselves and being C7 simultaneously, instead of switching between them." Before discussing further, manager Kando approached with his tablet and the harried expression they recognized as his schedule must be maintained despite emotional breakthroughs face. 15 minutes until the meet and greet session, he announced briskly. Stylists need you for touch-ups immediately. Director Blake is pleased with the performance quality, but questions certain unplanned elements. This last comment was directed specifically at Vic, who remained serenely unconcerned. Also, Manager Kando continued, checking his tablet with visible trepidation, the after-party venue has confirmed all arrangements, including the special accommodation. He glanced meaningfully at James, who nodded in acknowledgement. Will the film crew be filming the after-party? Roman inquired with practical concern. Manager Kando assured them, minimally. Focus will remain on work interactions rather than personal conversations. Director Blake has approved appropriate privacy parameters. Jake hung back momentarily as the members were hurried away for post-performance adjustments before their meet-and-greet obligations, glancing toward the auditorium entrance where audience members would soon be exiting. She'll still be here, John said quietly, noticing Jake's hesitation. The VIP passes include meet-and-greet access. I know, Jake nodded. He paused, struggling for words. Want to acknowledge what happened during the performance? John suggested first. Jake nodded again, relief in his expression. The moment when I saw her, it changed something. How I approached the performance afterward. I think we all experienced something similar tonight, John observed. Finding a new balance between artistic excellence and openness. It felt significant. Evolution rather than compromise, Jake agreed, his minimal expression softened by emotion. I need to tell her what happened. What she inspired without even trying. You'll have your chance, John assured him, glancing at his watch. But right now, we have approximately 37 seconds before Manager Kando returns with reinforcements to drag us to the styling room. Jake smiled slightly, a rare expression that transformed his usually serious face. Accurate time assessment. Years of experience with backstage scheduling tyranny, John replied with a grin. Come on, we can continue our emotional breakthroughs while someone fixes our dance-destroyed hair. The official C7 showcase afterparty took place at an elegantly decorated rooftop venue with sweeping views of Seoul's nighttime skyline. Security was strict, with attendance carefully restricted to industry professionals, select members of the media, and VIPs. Typically rigid boundaries between C7 and the public were relaxed, allowing their girlfriends to attend without explicitly acknowledging those relationships. James found himself caught in a complex web as he fulfilled his official hosting duties while trying to maintain an appropriate distance from Muse, who was, at the same time, a kindergarten teacher to her exhausted but thrilled students and an undefined romantic interest to 1/7 of the evening's entertainment. Your performance was impressive, she told him, with the carefully modulated enthusiasm of someone trying to sound like a professional educator rather than whatever they were becoming to each other. The children were particularly captivated by the synchronized movements during your second number. Thank you, James replied with equally careful professionalism, maintaining appropriate distance while a company photographer captured their interaction. We're honored to have Sunshine Kindergarten's educational outreach program in attendance. Their formal conversation continued in this way, a strange performance for observers who might not see the complex reality behind their casual interaction. Around them, similar scenes played out with other members. John discussed culinary marvels with Saul, pretending it was all professional. Roman engaged in an academic discussion with Ellie about cataloging and reviewing concert videos. Julian showed simplified choreography to a group of excited young fans. At the same time, Hope offered ideas with the authority of a dance instructor, not that of his equally enthusiastic romance partner. Jake, meanwhile, was scanning the increasingly crowded venue with unmistakable anticipation. Whether Tina would appear at the after-party remained uncertain. "This is exhausting," James murmured to Muse when they briefly found themselves in a corner without immediate observation. "Pretending we're just acquaintances." Before Muse could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. A familiar figure had arrived, identical to James in every detail, but with a different aura. "Is that?" Muse began, eyes widening in surprise. "Evan," James confirmed, equally surprised. He wasn't supposed to arrive for another hour, only after most media had left. "Well, this should be interesting," Muse observed with the calm of someone who had witnessed too much kindergarten chaos to be easily flustered. Twin confusion in 3, 2, 1. Right on cue, a photographer approached Evan, clearly mistaking him for James. Looking increasingly uncomfortable, Evan attempted to explain the misunderstanding while the photographer insisted with determination that Mr. Cho was scheduled for official photos with the event sponsors. "I should rescue him," James sighed, already moving toward the developing situation. "Or we could watch the entertaining confusion unfold for another minute," Muse suggested with mischievous eyes. "For scientific observation purposes, of course." "You're terrible," James laughed, though he paused to watch his brother's awkward attempts to explain that he was not the James expected for promotional photographs. "I'm practical," Muse corrected. "Life provides limited entertainment opportunities, perfectly aligning with my interests in twin-related comedy scenarios." James nodded, amused and resigned, before intervening in his brother's predicament. As he approached, the photographer's confusion visibly doubled, his gaze bouncing between the identical brothers with growing panic. "There are two." The photographer was surprised, lowering the camera slightly as he processed this unexpected development. "This is my twin brother, Evan," James explained smoothly, years of media training kicking in automatically. "He's here as my guest this evening." "I tried to explain," Evan added apologetically. "But apparently, I'm not James's is an unconvincing argument when you have the same face." The photographer's expression suggested that this situation fell well outside his preparation parameters. "So, which of you is scheduled for the sponsor photographs?" "I am," James confirmed. "If you'd like both of us together, that could be an interesting visual for your coverage." This suggestion, which James made primarily to ease the photographer's obvious distress, was enthusiastically seized upon, resulting in an impromptu photo session featuring identical twins in non-identical attire. Evan, though uncomfortable with the attention, cooperated with brotherly resignation. "I thought we agreed you'd arrive later," James murmured between posed smiles as the photographer adjusted the lighting. "Change of plans," Evan replied quietly. Muse messaged that her students were getting overtired and might need early departure. "I came to help with logistics, since she's alone with 25 kindergartners." "Thank you," he said sincerely as the photographer finally finished and moved on to other subjects. "That was thoughtful." "It's what I do," Evan shrugged, downplaying his consideration. "Practical problem solving while you handle the spotlight." Before James could respond to this observation, which perhaps had more complex implications than Evan intended, Muse approached with two exhausted children holding her hands. "Evan." "Perfect timing," she greeted him with relief. "Min Ho and Seo Yeon have reached their excitement threshold. The others aren't far behind." "I requested the bus and confirmed they could arrive earlier than scheduled," Evan replied, immediately changing to practical assistance mode. "How many chaperones do you have?" "We should be going," Muse said, redirecting her attention to include James. "The children are exhausted, though they'll talk about this experience for months. Thank you for arranging everything." "Let me at least help you gather everyone," James nodded, a polite smile on his face, despite his disappointment at their abbreviated interaction. Actually, Muse changed her mind. It might be easier if you continue your official duties while Evan helps me herd the kindergarten chaos squad. There will be less confusion, since you're constantly being pulled aside for photos and conversations. The practical suggestion made perfect sense, yet James could not shake the feeling of being slightly out of place as Muse and Evan were gathering sleepy children. He was still processing this unexpected shift when Manager Kando, with his typical logistical urgency, appeared at his elbow. "Director Blake is requesting your presence for industry introductions," he informed James briskly. "Major partners from Japan have just arrived." "Of course," James nodded, automatically shifting back to professional mode. "I'll be right there." As he moved toward his official obligations, James caught a final glimpse of Muse and Evan by the exit, each holding the hands of tired kindergartners as they coordinated the group's departure. The image, his twin and his, whatever Muse was becoming to him, working together, created an uncomfortable knot of feelings he could not immediately identify. It wasn't jealousy. He trusted both implicitly and understood the practical necessities. It was more complex, as he recognized how his reality created inevitable complications for personal life, necessitating constant navigation of competing priorities that others did not face. Perhaps this was the true challenge emerging from their showcase evening, integrating authentic expression into polished performance and reconciling the persistent demands of idle life. As James straightened his jacket and put on his smile for the approaching business partners, he wondered how the other members navigated this fundamental challenge across the crowded afterparty. In a quiet corner of the venue's expansive balcony, Jake stood alone, with the glittering cityscape serving as the perfect backdrop for his solitude. He had completed his minimum official duties before moving to this less crowded area, his eyes occasionally moving toward the entrance with barely hidden anticipation. 2 hours into the after-party, he began accepting that Tina would not appear. Despite witnessing her presence during the concert, the moment that had triggered his unexpected breakthrough, she had not used the VIP access that would have admitted her to this exclusive gathering. Jake understood. The professional boundary between dance instructor and student created natural hesitation about appearing in public contexts that might be interpreted as romantic. Tina valued her professional reputation and independence too highly to risk misinterpretation. Still, after what had happened during the performance, Jake had hoped. Your sequence during the third number incorporated interesting weight distribution adjustments. The voice behind him, calm, direct, and immediately recognizable, caused Jake to pivot instantly. Tina stood a few feet away. You came, Jake stated simply. Professional curiosity, Tina replied with the faintest suggestion of a smile. Your performance technique had unexpected evolutionary qualities that warranted direct analysis. Jake recognized the deliberate framing of her explanation, a technical justification for what might otherwise appear to be a personal interest. He nodded once, accepting the parameters she established for this public interaction. The stability adjustment wasn't planned, he admitted quietly. It happened when I saw you in the audience. Tina's carefully maintained professional expression softened slightly. I noticed. It changed something. Not just that moment, but the entire concert afterward. I observed that transformation. Tina nodded, her analytical vocabulary barely disguising personal meaning. The integration appeared beneficial, rather than detrimental to overall performance quality. It felt more sincere, Jake acknowledged. Infused with my interpretation of song emotion. Around them, the afterparty continued as industry professionals networked, media representatives captured approved content, and other C7 members navigated the complex balancing act between personal and professional interactions. Yet in their quiet corner, Jake and Tina had created a brief moment where telepathic attraction could exist within the framework of professional discussion. "Our showcase is next week," Tina noted, shifting to safer conversational territory. "Will tonight's performance evolution influence your approach to our dance?" "I think it already has," Jake replied honestly. "The barrier between performance technique and personal meaning seems more permeable now. Less compartmentalized." Tina contemplated this. Artistic integration rather than separation. The intentional ambiguity of her observation, which related to their dance collaboration and the growing bond, wasn't missed by Jake. They were having two conversations at once, one suitable for public settings, and the other of personal significance. As the evening progressed, Director Blake observed the various interactions from a strategic vantage point, occasionally conferring with the film director, who captured selected moments with discrete angles. The evolution is visually apparent in performance quality. More integration, less separation. Director Blake noted, with artistic appreciation. Not just in performance quality. More integration, less separation. "The film narrative is developing well," the director agreed. "No need for script when the natural interaction is this compelling." As the afterparty started winding down, the 7 members found themselves briefly gathered near the venue's central bar. A rare moment of unity, amid an evening of individual duties and separate interactions. "Interesting night," John observed mildly, the understatement considering everything that had transpired. "Scientific breakthrough," Roman agreed. "Both performance parameters and subsequent navigational complexities." "Did anyone else feel different on stage tonight?" James asked, expressing what they had all experienced but had not yet collectively acknowledged. "Like something fundamental shifted in how we approached the performance." 6 variations of affirmative responses confirmed the shared opinion, although each member had experienced this evolution in slightly different ways. "Performance enhanced by personal meaning rather than separated from it," Vic added. "Less like switching between C7 mode and me mode," Julian contributed enthusiastically. "More like being both simultaneously." "Integration rather than compartmentalization," Silas observed with unusual philosophical depth for their pragmatic producer. "The audience responded to this in the loudest roars," John noted thoughtfully. "Even without knowing what caused it, they sensed the difference." "The question," Roman added with practical insight, "is whether we can maintain this progress while navigating comeback promotions and increasing professional demands." This observation brought them back to their fundamental challenge of sustaining it through the rigorous schedule and public scrutiny that accompanied their professional lives. "I think tonight proved something important," James said after a moment of silence. "That our dating makes us a better group." As manager Kando approached, his expression telegraphing time to leave urgency, the 7 members exchanged glances of mutual understanding. The crown remained firmly in place, but the 7 members were learning to wear it differently, forming integrated selves that could exist both on stage and in life. In the C7 dorm, the 7 members gathered in their living room much later that night, despite the late hour of their concert and physical exhaustion. Still dressed in various states of post-event dishevelment, with performance makeup smudged and carefully styled hair returning to its natural state, designer outfits exchanged for comfortable loungewear, they sprawled across couches and floor cushions in a familiar pattern developed through years of cohabitation. "I still can't believe Vic dedicated a song to Sera through cryptic flower metaphors in front of 10,000 live audience members," James marveled, kicking off his slippers. "That might be the boldest thing any of us has done yet." Effective communication requires an appropriate medium, Vic responded serenely from his position by the window. Music carried meaning that words alone could not express. Manager Kando nearly had an aneurysm, Silas observed dryly. I believe his exact words were, "Unscheduled emotional expression creates unpredictable media narratives." Yet Director Blake seemed oddly pleased, Roman noted. His comments were artistic evolution out of the closet. Because it wasn't rehearsed, Jake contributed quietly. The audience may not consciously recognize the difference, but they feel it. Like my moment when I saw Tina, he continued with uncharacteristic openness. The hesitation wasn't planned, but what happened afterward felt real somehow. I felt it too, John acknowledged. After I spotted Saul, during our second number. The performance remained the same, but something about my style deviated. Roman suggested innermost meaning, rather than accurately singing a song with imagined feelings. It's like we discovered a whole new performance dimension. Julian exclaimed, still energetic despite the late hours and physical demands. The film director called it the passage they've been waiting for to capture, James reported, scrolling through his phone. Convenient for their production requirements, Silas noted skeptically. The question now, John shifted to a more serious tone, is how this affects our comeback promotions. Tonight was a special showcase, with a limited audience, a controlled environment, and minimal media presence. Full promotions will be much more structured and scrutinized. Can we keep this up while managing busy schedules and constant public scrutiny? Roman expressed the concern they all shared to varying degrees. I think that's what we're all figuring out, James responded thoughtfully. The distinction between stage and reality had not vanished but had become more nuanced. Work in progress indeed. Like everything truly meaningful.